Eccoci qua.
Here we are as we continue with our nice free demo course. And now, after these three first lessons, we will give you, and we couldn't do this without giving you a nice treat on the mix. It is a very important lesson because it's one of the fundamental concepts to get your mix to sound cleanly and well-defined. Obviously, we get to this lesson not directly from harmonics to this, because after harmonics we have so many other lessons that will show you how to well define all the harmonics aspects of your track, with the chords, with chord sequencing, with bass chords, as with more cultivated chords, to get to define and structure in a perfect way all the harmonics. After this, we see how important it is and how to edit a right vocals part, and to know as well how to record it. This recording flow will not only be useful to recording voices, but also for any outside source. And after that, another very important lesson is where you put together everything you have seen until that point, to know how to define and completely structure with all the necessary elements, with all the sound families. So, how very important what we will see on how to structure a song. And after that part of the journey, we arrive to the mix and master. And there, one of the topics dealt with that we are giving you today is the concept of gain staging. Enjoy! Hi guys, so we begin with the practical approach and we start working on the mix. So the question you see on screen is fundamental. What are the three golden rules for a perfect mix? Probably a lot of you were waiting for this moment, so now we're beginning to go in depth and to get more into depth. So we have to pay a lot of attention in this chapter. The three golden rules to have a good sound, a clean mix, an important mix. Minus 15. What does it mean? It's minus 15 of peak on every track at the beginning of its sound journey. Words that maybe don't mean a lot now, but we'll see them better later. Second, the mix before arriving to the master must not only have a mix that is at maximum minus 6, but also it must have a certain type of dynamics. It must have an RMS of a certain kind, because otherwise we get there too soft or too potent. So it's a question not only of peak, but also of relative volumes. And then we have the concept of every sound has its space and its quality. We'll tell you about the metaphor of the jar, which will illustrate this concept better. So let's begin with the first point, maximum attention. So, if you've understood well what we have said so far, if I set all of my volumes in all of my channels close to 0, you will see that the sum of the channels, because some frequencies add up, will send my master in over 0, digital. And by now it's cool that you understand the difference between 0 digital and 0 analog. The yellow line instead indicates where we should sound to be able to have a clean mix. So how do we achieve this? It's the first big trick of the mix. To sound high, we must start low. It may sound strange, counterintuitive, but it's the first big truth. What does it mean? It means that I have to transport all of my sounds at the beginning of their journey, before the plugins and all the elements that change them, and through the process where I add them to arrive to the master. From that beginning they should start low. Everyone in their own digital workstations will find a way to do it. In Ableton, what we use very often is the utility. Let me show you exactly what this is. If I take this kick, guys, you see it? Let's put it in solo. Let's play it. We play it. You see, this kick sounds practically at 0. And maybe many of you have used this approach, that I have to feel that strong pump at the beginning. It's sounding at minus 1.14. In Ableton, if you pull this line up, it gives you a meter. So this track is sounding at minus 1.14 in peak. So you can understand that we are in this circumstance. Probably we are in a situation in which this kick element will be at minus 1.14 from the green line. And so you can see that if I start adding other things, let's see the bass, activate the bass. Here it is. Look at the master. It goes beyond 0. So now this, if I go print it on a file, will have its tails cut. And it'll sound, you could hear, when over 0. Some algorithm, some equipment is capable of not having you hear that, but that sound is cut and lost. So, what is the concept? And there are two reasons to do this. The first is, and you can see it here, that the kick is too loud. I could lower it from here. In Ableton we have this for the wave. For rendered audio, we have this parameter. But really, what we do is that we use a utility and we put it on the channel, okay? And we go to lower it. Let's go back to the mix version. In Ableton, with Tab, you return to this view. We go get our channel. You see, but instead of lowering this, why? Because this is at the end of everything I will introduce as effects. The plugins I'll introduce in here then will be regulated in volume by the mixer's fader. This passage is fundamental. If I lower this, but then here I load a compressor, distortion, inside the compressor, inside the distorter, I am still entering at 0. And if you remember what we said before, they will not have room to work. So now, I have to get in at minus 15, where at the beginning I am low, so I can help work well all the plugins in the chain. So I will not lower this, this will be at 0. I'll lower this. Here we go. So you can see, we go here, minus 15, minus 18. And it depends if you're working at 24-bit or 16-bit. Remember, Nello showed you that. They were slightly different. One at minus 18 and the other one minus 12, 13. The point is, minus 15 if average is good. It doesn't have to be scientific. If it's minus 16, minus 14, it's okay. Because you will see later, we'll work on this element. But for now, let's bring them down. You see here, this I solved. I don't hear. Get rid of the bass. Now it's low. I raised the volume. Why do we have a volume knob on the sound card? Raise the volume. Now, I get back here and I go see, for example, the bass. Too high. The group of the bass I'll leave at 0, but I go put in the individual basses. This is a bass that works as sub and 2 mids. I put the utility. You see, it's right after the synth. Obviously, I could also lower in the synth the volume knob. But then every time I need to adjust the volume, I need to open the synth. So it's better to set the utility. You see, I begin to bring it down. Let me turn these other two off. Get rid of the kick. And back to the bass. Here it is. This works. 18. Let's go add a utility on the one after. And I turned it on. Too high, I lower it. Here we are. Third utility. Boom. We open it. Okay, so you see how now the sum of them is at minus 12. Why? Because they add up together. Boring? Yes, very boring. But this is how you get a good sound. We said it 1,000 times. Boredom is the producer's worst enemy. So what happens now? The advice we give you is, when you begin to work, but right at the beginning, when you're playing, you load a synth, put it at minus 10, minus 15. The trick that we share with you is, minus 10 decibels, you put in minus 10, You can also do right-click, Save as Default Preset, which is a utility that every time you load it, will put it at -10. Because sounds don't always come out at 0. You see, this kick here has a little bit of margin. Okay, if I put -10, I get almost -15. Synths don't come out all at 0. They come out at -5 or 6. If I put in my utility at -10, we get out at the right level. So in average, starting at -10 levels your sounds. But do it when you begin working. You load a kick, put it at -10. And then see where it falls and you modify it. All sounds, listen to what happens. You see, these are very leveled. If I open the kick, I can hear there are problems in the sound that I need to fix. And we'll see later how to do it. But for now, what have I done? I've turned the volumes down to have headroom or space to work on the song and on the single plugins. Do you see these meters here? It's not like the builders of the audio workstations said, oh, let's do something today. Okay, let's put a meter there. They put them there because they're your best friends. To see an F chain if the sound is stable, or if you're going in too high in a plugin. If you get in too high in a plugin, only crap's gonna come out. Imagine if you have 30, 40 channels, 50, 60. Each one that comes in the plugin badly, and plugins that don't work clearly, imagine all the garbage around. Listen now instead to this relief. I lower the volume. All channels enter the plugin cleanly. They work cleanly. I add them up cleanly. I go to the master with space on top. And look how, just by saying it, it sounds cleaner. Okay, this is a trick, fundamental secret. To start low. Okay, now, for practicality, we have included in these other channels. For the bass we have nothing, but here we have included these utilities. Some are lower, some are higher, but we've put all of them to stay between -15 or 16 in the various tracks. If we play the whole song, it doesn't sound well, it's still not balanced. But if you look at the sounds, they're all down here. You see this? Look at them. I'll continue. Do you see how much black space there is on top of every meter? And you see in the master, there is space. And you see the master right now, -6, -5, -4, around the famous -6, that we need to work on the mastering. We are probably still high, but when we work on the sounds, we'll go a bit lower. But look at all the space we have. There's nothing that goes red. It means that I can work every channel cleanly, and adding them, I will still have space to work on the master. Now, this is wrong. I bring it down. I work cleanly, obviously. I come in cleanly in the plugins and they work cleanly. And I don't make the mistake of going over. And so what we have done by bringing everything down and staying at -15 or 16, what you want, but around that number, I've put all the channels around there. I add them up and we work clean. Obviously the work we do later, and something will go up, something will go down on my first mix. And so my mix will adjust itself. Okay, but this first point is fundamental. If you don't do this as the first thing, you will never sound well. Then you have the friend or the mega famous producer that works everything beyond 0, that uses plugins in a certain way and builds everything in a certain way. But he sounds like that and he's able to do that and has his peculiar method. But technically, it is not the correct way to work. 1 in 1,000 may be able to do it. It's like the first with the electric guitar, with the distorter in the gate and the gate in the microphone, inventing something dumb and created a special sound. But theory tells us that this is the way to work for everyone, that can with time reach a hyper-professional level. You will see that at the end of this process your tracks will change from here to here. And this is the first passage. The gain staging, having the volume under control, is the first big rule. It helps us do what? Keep the mix clean, because plugins can work well, and helps us have the right dynamics. Why? Because it is a way to allow us to control dynamics without slamming everything against the roof, or the roof which is the 0. We could not give you this essential element. It is an element that, in the music industry and among the great mix engineers, is very well known, and we wanted to introduce it to you. Obviously, from here, to get to a complete mix, we have to go through a lot of technique, and we have to do a lot of lessons that are fundamental. And clearly, this will all be part of the complete course. And so, with this lesson, we wanted to give you as a present this first technique. After this lesson, we will give you another important element to better understand what the talent pool is, because among the many emails we receive, it is an often asked question. Enjoy the next one and see you later.